Hello. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the layout for a portfolio. So we're going to assume that you are going to print it out on a big printout. So this is going to be in a bigger format paper or board for the purpose of presentation. So you already have a bunch of drawings that you have done. So these are previous sketches that I've made. So I need now to have this laid out on say like an A1 size. So here I'm showing you drawings that I've done on an A5 size paper page of my notebook. These are done in 1:200. So I took pictures of them. So I'm using a good lighting, as you can see in this footage. Now I was aligning my camera, or my phone rather, perpendicular to the paper with better lighting. So I'm using an LED light. What you can do here is, if you don't have that piece of equipment, is that you can align that with a lighting at home, something that is daylight lighting. Another idea of taking a good picture of your sketches is when you use the outside ambient lighting, not direct sunlight, but rather something like a shadowed area. The important thing is to get an image with very uniform lighting of your sketches. So next thing that I did was to use Camscanner. So it's a free program. I selected all the images that I've taken, my sketches, and then combine them into one and then have them framed. So one good thing about Camscanner is that it formats the images for you. It creates this frame and it crops only the paper, and sometimes you need to adjust this accordingly because sometimes it doesn't work 100%. So you have to inspect all the images one by one to see if they're correct. And after which, and then use a built-in filter called Lighten. So it creates this even lighting of all your images. So after which, you can export them. Pay close attention to the evenness of the white of the paper. That's important because later on, we don't have to do so much work in terms of trying to match all the white areas of the papers. So what I'm showing you right now are images that I took just without the filters of Camscanner. It's not yet processed, so it's a nice even picture, and process the images with the Camscanner as I described. So finally, when I exported the lighting images, and this is the result, contrasting was increased. The evenness of the whiteness of the paper is nicely done. Although we shall be using Photoshop or any image editing program to later on correct some of these things. You can see ghosting here. So this is something that we can fix with a editing program. So now let's go into Photoshop. So this particular example is, so when you first open Photoshop, this is what you see. Click on Create New. Now, as far as the intended printout, we can assume to print this out on an A1. We have the presets of the sizes of the paper layout. As you can see, it only goes up to A3 size. Let's click onto this. So if we increase this to ×2, make it twice more, that would be already A1. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to first click on the A3 size. So we have this in millimeters, and then we can see the dimensions. So it's currently 297 by 420. Now, in order for us to get the A1 size, which is ×4 the size of this, is that we multiply the dimensions, the X and the Y dimensions of this by 2. Now, if we're going to do this, this will be 594 millimeters. And then if we take the height, we're going to ×2 that, and that would be 840. And the resolution is going to be 300 let's keep it that. Rename this, and then I'm going to create this. Okay, nothing else is needed to be adjusted here. So this is A1 size. A couple of things that we need to do first is to turn on rulers, or Control R. Okay, here. Now this is important because we're going to be using this as to have your architectural drawing scaled accordingly to the size of the printout. So meaning if your drawings are scaled, they need to be printed out as scaled. So your images, your scaled floor plans, for example, need to be calibrated to this paper. Now, before all of this is that you have to have an idea of the layout to place in where, for example, where you want to tell the story of your structure. So I was looking at some examples of these layouts that I want. Probably would like to sort of like mimic, but not entirely copy. And I went to places like Pinterest or Instagram of some of the professionals who shared their images of their layouts. So here are some examples. And of course, you could go and take a look at these and search for them. Architecture portfolio layout. So one good example is this, something that you can mimic. So the project title, concepts, or the initial studies that you've done, and then the floor plans. Very simple type of layout. So the layout's more like a comic strip. You have to organize it in such a way that you're telling your story from the beginning to the end. So normally people would read first from the top and then to the left, and then they go down. Here, my eye is drawn first to the title, and then the concept of what was your main inspiration or the beginning ideas, and then it results now to the floor plan, which is the first thing that you usually have a look at, architectural designs. And then we go on to your studies, sketches, ideas, and then of course the normal thing. So these three elements or orthographic drawings are three normal elements that are shown, followed by the main rendered, which is probably the exterior perspective. You can then insert some of the interior shots here. So this is a good flow. So from top, going to from left to right, and then going down again, going to the right, and the like. So you could follow this exact layout, but there are so many examples of layouts. Of course, also do consider your text or your narrative text around here. And then of course your titles are going to be under each drawing. So you could really choose, but one thing to really follow is the rules of the flow of the sequence. So people will not be confused how you would like to narrate this. And in some layouts, you could have the main rendered shot or perspective drawing on top, and then the supporting drawings like floor plans and elevation sections will be under, and of course the studies. Now you can also follow this sort of ruling on compositions if you want to. So here are some other examples of what formulation that you could actually use, and you could see that usually the main title is always on the top. So this is what I was talking about. Have the title, perspective drawings, some smaller shots, probably interior perspectives and the like, floor plan, or probably this could be also the conceptual areas, and then text supporting that whatever you're showing here. So this is the flow is always usually going down here. Now there are other examples, of course, on how these things would work. Just choose one. Okay, so we need to insert now the floor plan. So I go in and say I take this, I want to use this. So I dragged it into Photoshop, and you can make this smaller. Okay, so take note that I am in with this move tool. So currently the drawing here is not scaled, so we need to resize this. So I'm choosing the floor plan to be first calibrated. They need to be exactly calibrated to be printed out as scaled. Another thing that I like to do is to organize this first, okay, by pressing layer here and double clicking onto the name. I'm going to rename this properly as ground floor. And then let's make sure that that's on. So I need to zoom in. So I'm going to be pressing Control and then plus sign to zoom in. And then you can scroll around. We have all of this calibration. So currently, what you see, the numbers here are the number of pixels. So that's not what we want. We want something that is in millimeters so that we could scale this properly. So I'm gonna hover onto the numbers and then go to millimeters. Now, I drew this once to 200. So therefore, this scale bar, which is 0 to 10, is roughly about 50 millimeters or 5 centimeters. So in order to calibrate this properly, I'm going to hover around onto one of the ruler side here, and then I'm going to drag out. I'm just going to click and drag out a line here. Now I'm going to align it here. Now, in order for you to better look at the numbers, is that you can zoom in. Okay, so in order for you to have a good closer look at the numbers here, which is spread out in every 20 millimeters, is that you need to zoom in again. With the move tool, I'm going to put it here, say to the 200 mark. If you're having a difficult time, of course, zoom in again, and you can precisely do that. The 200 millimeter mark. And then you can drag out another reference line or the blue line to the 50th. Yes, here. And then of course, you can zoom out by pressing Control and minus sign. Now you have the mark where that 5 centimeter is happening, and currently, if you take a look at this, this is the image here. It's slightly bigger, so we need to scale it down a bit. So right now, what you need to do is to transform this. To use the transform tool, is that you are in the ground floor layer, and then Control T, and then now these grip points appear. Now I can scale them down. You can move the image, scale it a bit. And I can zoom in to precisely size this up accordingly, and then place it in. Of course, then save, Control S. So I've scaled this already. So, and then if I need to move this out of the way, Control T again, just to, and then drag it out and enter. So I want my floor plan to be here. And now for the second floor plan, is that I'm going to take this, okay, on my Explorer, and then just drag it in. It drops down like that, and then you make it smaller by dragging that. Calibrate it with that mark, those reference line that you just made. Okay, make sure that it's scaled properly. Okay, so that's 50 millimeters for this one. So it's exactly scaled to the ground floor plan. So move this into place somewhere here. You can align this and then just press enter. And then I would like to rename this into second floor. Same thing for the section. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drag in my section, make it smaller, scale it properly, then place it to where it is convenient. I'm going to do the same thing for the elevation. Drag it in. Scale it. Then drag it over. So I have my basic architectural drawings. Rename these, of course, accordingly. So now you have all of these. There are some edges here that I'd like to take out. So there are certain things, of course, that edge needs to be cleaned up. So what I usually do is I'm going to take my eraser tool. Now with that little arrow, okay, so I'm going to choose that. So here, right on the upper left side, I would like to choose something that is with a soft round. Okay, you can choose the edges. Okay, but what I need to do to be using is a soft round. I can softly erase the edges that I don't want accordingly. But what's easier to do here is, okay, so I'm just going to undo multiple times. I'm going to choose, make sure that you are in your eraser tool. Okay, you're in the correct layer. Is that I'm going to click here once on this edge, on this corner of that image. I'm going to, once you've clicked that once, so I'm going to move my cursor over here. Oh, by the way, try to choose something that is a good size for this eraser. So you could choose, right currently it's in 300 pixels diameter. So what you need to do is to first click once here on this corner, and then hold shift and then move your cursor here and then click again. It's going to erase this in a straight line. Same thing here, first corner, click once and then hold shift and then go down. Same thing here, click once, hold shift, click here. So it erases the entire thing smoothly. Okay, so here this is something that I want to erase out for a bit. Here, there. Do be careful though when you're erasing. There might be some things that, for example, I accidentally erased that. Now, what you can do here is to go and undo these things. For certain scenarios like this, you may want to lower the size to 100. And then click once, hold shift, go to this other side line. So that's one way of cleanly erase these sort of like straight line edges. Here, click once, hold shift. Okay, that's the other paper. So certain things here, okay, I'm going to resize my brush again. Let's make it bigger by 200. So I go on to my second floor, click that once, do the same thing. It says, yeah, press OK. Oops, too big. Sometimes you just need to erase these so that you won't erase that orientation. So the orientation here, for example, it's not needed for the second floor. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut it out. Control X, and then I'm going to place it here because this is where I need it. So I'm going to press in the ground floor and Control V, and then move that with the tool. I'm going to press this or press V and then place it over here. Now the arrow is one separate layer here. So what you want to do here with that arrow, you want to integrate it with the layer of the ground floor. You can do that by first pressing here, right click, and then press merge down. So it has the ground floor layer has to be under this layer 1. And when you do this merge down, it becomes part of that layer. So if you're not sure which is the layer, which layer this image is, what you can do here is you go over here, and maybe this is probably layer Cafe 4, is that you can turn on off so that you know which one is which. And the best way to really know which are which is to really name them section. Then I'm going to go back to my floor plan. Again, zoom in, Control plus. Now there are certain things that I'd like to edit out, like these lines. I didn't mean them to be there, so therefore I'm going to lower the size of my eraser, say something like 20, and I could start erasing them. Okay, I'm using a mouse, by the way. The best tool to actually use this is with a tablet, a digital tablet. So here I'm erasing these things. So the background for this for the layout is white. So that's, by erasing, you're sort of like making holes onto your ground floor image here. Oops. If you're making mistakes like this, you can always Control Z to undo. There are certain things that I want. For example, the door that I didn't mean to, I can always erase quite finely like this. And then so many excess here. So you can finally erase those lines that you didn't mean to. You can erase that door that you didn't mean to. You have that door over there. That's the door that you didn't mean to have. So you painstakingly erase these things. But then, here's the question. What if you've already rendered something, there, like floor plan, you color coded something, certain things like, but what you could do here is, okay, I'm just going to take this example here of this highlighted, this colored area here. So what I can do here is I'm going to make use of a tool called stamp. So that stamp tool is this symbol, clone stamp tool. So you have this size. Now, in order for you to kind of like this, extend this, for example, this area, you want this to be more of here. What you can do here is really to first pick up this material or area by pressing Alt, the Alt key, for options for any Mac users. You press that once, and then it's going to replicate whatever that area is. So here it's replicating whatever here is. So it's replicating the material, for example, over to here. So in this situation, it's likely that you use this sparingly if you can. So it's replicating this. but not to a point where, you know, you have this, it starts becoming obvious that you just copied something in over to here. So you can change these areas by just press, again, Alt, press this area so that it's going to replicate that area over to here, so that, you know, you have a different consistency. You can do this by even doing the here, you pick up the material here, and you can start stamping it over to this farther area. Again, try to use randomly pick the areas. So that's going to happen if you're going over there, and then that's going to happen. So Control Z to undo. So this is what I meant by doing that. And then certain things like if you want to replicate, say, certain lines that you want to extend here, like I want that endpoint, so therefore I'm going to press Alt, and then I'm going to place it over there, so that I have this much better end of that line. Like certain things, like of course you can't erase this, so I'm going to use stamping instead. So I'm going to pick my area here and then start coloring that instead of erase. Again, pick randomly. Here, I'm going to erase that. And then, of course, switch back to erase if you need to erase solid lines. So in this area, I had a revised floor layout for this part. So I'm going to splice that in. And how do we do that? Of course, first choose the splice area. Okay, so this is my splice area. I'm going to drag it into Photoshop. I'm going to zoom out, then have that scaled accordingly. Calibrate this properly to see if it's aligning visually. Okay, it's slightly bigger a bit. Make sure that you're in the correct layer. You can have this open all the time. Okay, I'm just gonna place it here. Your layer is open all the time. So I think the scale for this one is slightly off. So therefore I need to kind of slightly change this up a bit, make it larger a bit. In order to do that, Control T for transform. I'll make sure that it is flat. Control T for transform. And then make it slightly bigger. I'm just going to drag this a bit. Okay, once you've done this, drag it out a bit. You can start erasing, of course. You can use the eraser tool if you need to. So I would not need that too much. So I'm just going to erase, making it smaller. Save it from time to time, Control S. Then move this in. So the scale here, it's slightly off, so I'm just going to transform this again and make it a bit smaller. Yes, exactly that. And to the position. And then I'm going to start erasing, unmasking all of this. This area. So I'm splicing in these two images to form one image. Okay, here, I'm just going to erase this carefully. Transform this again so that I can move this. slightly down. It's aligning to the property line. And erase again. Now I can erase that extra scale bar, and now I can integrate this onto that. Now, so this is the time when I'm going to be switching back to a hard edge. So I'm still on that layer of that splice. So I'm just going to zoom in, Control plus. I start erasing some parts here. So I'm going to lower my brush size. Now you could press in brackets. Okay, so you could press the left bracket to become smaller and the right bracket key to become larger. So I could start erasing this more to that. Now just be careful. Just gonna make it smaller. So I'm zoomed in right now. I'm gonna press start erasing these parts properly. Oops. Control Z to undo unnecessary things that you don't want to happen. Control Z, let's comment. Here, goes there. And just fine tune all what you need. Of course, I go back to my ground floor. I'm just going to erase some of the things that I think are not correct. Go back to that layer. Erase some of the edges that you don't need. Zoom out to see overall. So erasing all of this. And then once you've done all of this necessary erasing, make it larger. I'm just going to erase some of these parts here, making sure that everything's nicely done. Oops, Control Z. Once everything's done, you can merge these two. That's only if you're really sure. You merge it down to your floor plan. Now it's integrated into your floor plan. Of course, you need to kind of refine all of these things now. And I'm gonna go back to my soft edge erasing. So certain text like this, I don't need. So I'm going to erase. Some of the ghosting of the other side of the paper, I can erase. Use a larger brush size for that. Clean up some of the areas that you can clean up. So I'm using a soft edge brush again, and then I'm going to switch to the second floor. I'm just going to erase some of these ghostings. Here, I'm showing you the section. It has ghosting of the floor plan. I just want to leave that in because it shows me a bit of a nice information. So this is like an accidental. It's a nice accident, and this is a good graphic there just to relate it to the floor plan above. So I'm okay with this. For I made a mistake there, so I want to erase that for the section. And then you need to zoom in again, and then slide over to that area over here. Just use the sliders on the sides, and then I'm going to lower of course my erasing size. Again, I'm still using the soft edge erasing. So zoom in again. Now you could start to see the pixelation of this, and then try to finally erase that out. So with that, with this basic demonstration of how to work out Photoshop, you can see, you know, this initial layout of this. Now, of course, you can compress all of this with just closer to each other. And so I'm going to move up my second floor plan to this. So I'm just going to zoom in again. Control T to transform, and then you can drag it up, making sure that, you know, you're not overlapping. I can drag in the section. Control T. Okay, later on I could erase that because it's blocking. Erase some of that. And then E to erase, and I'll enter once and then erase. So for electronic text, right? So you go in, zoom in, and you press in the text button, and you start creating the text. Now the size is a bit big for here. Okay, so currently these are roughly about 2 millimeters to 5 millimeters for the text. So that's something that I want. So what you need to do here for the text is that you can change this to a lower number, say 16. Now make sure that, of course, the color of your text is black. Control A, and then change this by selecting that. Go to blank most, and that's the, okay, so it's a bit big. What you can do here is you can choose a smaller number again, say 10. Let's try 10. Now capital letters are normally used for architectural text, and if you say let's see, yada yada. Okay, so I'm using a style of, you can't go wrong with Arial. Use Arial. If you're not sure of the size, you can always go there. And so this is 5 millimeters lettering text that I used, and then it has to be slightly bigger than, say, 12. That sort of matches it. Okay, so 5 millimeters is great because it would be it's readable once this is printed out. So somebody who is coming close to your, this is good for coming close to your exhibit. So this is normally a person is going to be like less than 1 meter away from your board, and so it's different if you're talking to a group of people and showing your board, which is who are like 3 meters away. So therefore your entire printout has to be bigger. Here I'm just going to give you an example, of course, of what the text should look like, and then yada yada yada. So in the section area, of course, the text here, I can duplicate this, duplicate layer, and move it up. Okay, select the second layer of that text, and you can move it about. And then I would like to convert this other text. I need to increase the size if this is going to be like my title for this layout. So I'm going to increase that. Okay, I've selected that extra layer, and then I'm going to go for like 30. I'm just going to write first my project and then put it into place. So far, this is what you see. And then for the rest, of course, I'm going to place that, I'm going to do the same process of dragging in the image and then erasing some of the edges, edit the lines that I don't need, and of course placing in the text later on. And of course, place in your narratives that you need.